Alright, and there's your problem right there. You see that black, what looks like a black spot is actually a hole that goes pretty deep down as far as I can see. It's a little harder to see on here, but it goes into the cigar. And what I did was, because I wasn't getting a good burn, I was having to suck way too much air, I let the cigar go out, cleaned off the foot, and once I could brush away some of the ash, all of a sudden, boom, that shows up. And what you could see here is most of the filler is pushed over to the side here, and you have a huge channel that's going right down into the cigar. And the reason you're not getting any smoke is you're sucking just a way too much air, a huge amount of air, right past the foot, which is not allowing for the proper oxygen mixture to take place to properly ignite, combust the cigar. Some really scientific shit right there. But that's what's happening. So, there are a number of solutions. This, so far, has been a really good tasting cigar, and it's a shame that this is happening. Basically, I can either cut the foot down until I get a nice level amount of filler again, or I can relight and just let it burn as such until hopefully it fixes itself. I'm going to opt with the latter, and hopefully the cigar will just fix itself rather quickly. Look, this happens, okay? And I'm not going to judge, rate the cigar based on that one thing. Because I could smoke 10 of these and maybe this wouldn't have happened. You know, I just got what happened to be a cigar that this happened to. So, whatever. Let's just relight and see where it goes. But I hate when that happens. I really do, because it really fucking ruins the moment. Anyway. Hopefully, by letting it go out and then sit for a good minute or two. I don't want to sit too long. I don't want everything to congeal. Or the oils to harden up, rather, but hopefully it maybe dried out, because this area was so hot and on fire, it'll dry out quickly once it goes out. Maybe it dried out enough for it to just kind of burn away and get back into shape. So let's just see, before we start amputating parts of it, let's just see what happens if we can get a good relight on it. You can even see, you can't see, but I can see how the filler around the hole doesn't even want to burn because it's allowing the heat just to go right past. There we go. Alright. Alright, so it's going to be a little wispy for a minute. Hopefully everything will fall back into place. But ignoring that, the spice has really subsided a lot, opening up to a mixture of woody flavors. You know, you got some cedar type flavors in there, you got some oaky type flavors in there, you definitely got more of a meaty flavor coming together from this strong Nicaraguan tobacco. The salt is still there. These should be pretty popular because it's reminding me at the moment of you know, these heavy Nicaraguan Liga Privada type cigars. That Spice Blast reminded me a lot. The initial light reminded me a lot of a Joya de Nicaragua. Very heavy on the palate, very full-bodied, very strong cigar so far. And forgive me, I didn't mention the price before. These come in boxes at $20, and they're selling on the internet right now, depending on the site you go to, anywhere from $6.50 to $8 a pop. So I think fans of full-bodied Nicaraguan cigars, which are very popular these days, I think they will really, really like this cigar. Personally, I like a full-bodied Nicaraguan cigar once in a while. Like I said earlier in the video, especially after smoking all those medium-bodied Cubans, you know, they're great and everything, but sometimes, you know, I want a nice nicotine blast. I usually opt for a Cajonu, like a strong Tatuaje or a Padron, but that's just my flavor profile. I do like a Ligo or Hoya once in a while when I'm really in the mood to just, like, you know, get blown away. Usually when I'm in the mood for a lot of nicotine, for like a strong cigar, I'll go to an Opus. Those are pretty heavy in that department. Alright, so let's see. Hopefully this guy evens out a little and we can get past that. You know, to start rating a cigar based on that, you'd have to smoke a good bunch of them and have that happen a couple of times, several times, to be able to say these cigars are just not made well. I can't say that by smoking one. You know, I can give you a flavor profile. I can tell you, wow, oh, it's bitter. This cigar needs time, because usually 90% of the time, one cigar like that is very representative of the rest of the batch. But poor construction is not. So you really can't tell based on that alone. Meaty, woody. Bit of a slightly vegetal undertone kind of going on. Almost some hints of some dried fruity type flavors, but very subtle, very subtle. There really is not a lot of sweetness here at all. I would say maybe like a reminiscent of a raisiny type flavor here and there. Very subtle. Okay, it looks like the channel is in my ash right there, but let's be gentle here. It looks like I'm starting to get a halfway decent drawback. You know, the cigar will lose, you know, 0.25 in that department, but it's not going to be rated as you know, bad because that happened. So I'm fair like that. You know, I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm not going to be like, oh, you fucking cigar. I smoked one of your cigars and it wasn't perfect, so therefore, I'm not going to be like that. And so far, to tell you the truth, as far as the type of cigar this is, you know, I am enjoying it. Yeah, a bit of some raisiny type flavors, some coffee-esque flavors opening back up. Spice is still there. Don't let me fool you. Just not blasting like it was on the initial couple of draws, maybe the initial 4 or 5 draws from the light. It got stronger and stronger, and I even got worried for a second. I was like, man, if spice continues like this, it's going to overpower everything. But then it suddenly started to decline, kind of mellowed in with the rest of the blend, and some other flavors started to open up. It's very good. So we briefly introduced Emilio Cigars when I lit the cigar up, but I did say it's a little tricky, this one, because you have Emilio Cigars and then you have House of Emilio. Let's talk about Emilio Cigars and then talk about exactly what House of Emilio is, who they are, what they do, what they represent, because it's a good thing to know, because it's a growing trend on the internet these days for things to happen like this, as far as, you know, products being advertised through mainly social media. Not saying that this is a common way for cigars to be handled. This is actually a pretty ingenious type of operation here. I'm trying to think. I wouldn't say that I know of any other operation single-handedly that really works exactly the way these guys do. So let's talk about them a little bit. Smells woody in here. Smells very, aroma is very woody. Smells like I said before, it has that burning fireplace smell to it. Very nice. Good cigar for the cold. So, as we opened up this video, we briefly introduced Emilio Cigars, and we said it's a little different than what you're used to, because it's not just Emilio Cigars. Emilio Cigars is the main brand. They were created in 2010 by Gary Griffith, who had a much bigger idea than just his own brand, than just Emilio Cigars. He seems to be drawn to, have a passion for getting boutique cigars out into the market, you know? And from my point of view, that's a good thing, because a lot of boutique cigars are very good, limited, and also never heard of. Because they're released in very small amounts, they're basically the startup brands of startup companies who want to get into the cigar market. And a lot of times, even if those cigars are great, these guys never make it, because it's just not enough cigars to get their name around, about, into the heads of smokers, you know, and you need that to happen to have repeat customers. There's not a lot of money in it the first time around when you're only making 1,500 boxes or something like that. And when there's not a lot of profit, there's not a lot of ability to get bigger. Can you imagine if that happened to Tatuaje? I would, well, I wouldn't be devastated because I would never have known about it. That's the point. But, God, that would suck, you know? A lot of these boutique brands make some very good cigars. And Gary seemed to have a vision, and that vision was House of Emilio. Don't die on me, baby. I'm being very gentle with you right now. Coming around, coming around. Before we get into that, just to point out how I think about this, Gary having this vision to get a lot of boutique blends, you know, onto the shelves, into the hands of smokers, you know, word of mouth, internet advertising, a lot going on here. The AF1 is actually named in honor of AJ Fernandez, AF. Now, AJ Fernandez, name may be familiar, may not, started out basically as a very boutique style cigar maker, blender, and manufacturer. He created a cigar called the Man of War, which up until a few years ago was really never heard of. It was a very cult cigar, loved among the people who were into them, but just never, there was never enough in production, never enough advertising to get it mainstream. I've never even tried a Man of War. I never heard of AJ Fernandez until he created the San Lotano. Now, San Lotano, fantastic cigar, especially the original, the Maduro box press version, very reminiscent in a way of Padron style cigars. You know, then he came out with the Oval, which, you know, had a slightly different shape, oval, with a whole bunch of different wrappers, Connecticut Habano, Maduro, and here you have an example of a guy making boutique cigars who finally made it, who got into the mainstream, making a bigger, more mainstream recognized brand. He also worked in factories, blended cigars for Rocky Patel. I read online specifically he had blended the Summer Blend 2008. another Patel blend. You know, so that's who it's named for, AJ Fernandez. So in 2010, Gary Griffith creates his Emilio Cigars, his brand, starts to fill this brand with lines, and very wisely decides, well, how do I advertise my cigars? How do I advertise a line of cigars that hasn't made a lot of money yet? Advertising is expensive. And the way he went was, like a lot of companies do these days, internet advertising. Social media advertising, Facebook, YouTube, blogs, websites owned by, you know, self-proclaimed cigar gurus and reviewers. And he found this to be successful. He found a means by which to get cigars into the cigar community. A lot of cigar smokers have turned to the internet for a lot of different reasons, but mainly what makes this is where Gary was thinking, and this is smart, and this is what I think. A lot of times you have hobbies that don't really that hobbyists of different natures that aren't really attracted to the internet for whatever the reason. Cigar smokers are attracted to the internet because cigars are a lot cheaper on the internet, especially for the same reason people who, in our Cuban cigar episodes, we've been talking about this. Some of you watching right now don't even watch those, I'm sure. But In our Cuban cigar episodes, we talk about the #1 way to get burned, to get a box of counterfeits, is to follow the lowest prices. Fortunately, when it comes to domestic cigars, this happens much, 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 much less. There are such things as fake Opus cigars and fake Padron cigars. We're not going to talk about that right now. People follow the lowest prices. And in the cigar world, in the cigar industry, the lowest prices for the smoker is on the internet. Domestic cigars, we forget in the United States that we're not the norm. The norm is Cuban cigars. Everywhere else in the world, it's Cuban cigars. In the United States, it's what we refer to as domestic cigars. Dominican, Nicaraguan, Honduran, etc., etc. And all of the cigars can be found on a slew of internet retailers for a lot cheaper than what you're used to paying in a store. Especially if you live in certain states. If you live in a certain state that incurs excessively high taxes on tobacco cigar products, and you can order cigars online and avoid those taxes, right away your cigars are a world cheaper. And then you have a whole bunch of people competing to have the lowest prices on the internet, which makes them even more cheap. And then, if you have a cigar that, you know, is a favorite of yours, hopefully, for whatever reason, it hasn't been that highly rated and, you know, it hasn't been bought out and people end up with extras, it's even cheaper. So, the internet, by that standard alone, attracts a lot of cigar smokers. The internet also happens to be one of the best places in the world to advertise your shit for free. And it just came together like that. I think what Gary realized is he was onto something in such a way that a lot of other brands, a lot of other people trying to get their cigars out there that really didn't have enough money to advertise or didn't know which way to turn could benefit from a service that would do just that for them. And thus, in 2012, House of Emilio was born. Now, House of Emilio represents a lot of different brands. I think about somewhere between 7 and 9, depending on where you go. I don't know if, you know, if you go to his site, it seems that there are 7. It's a little confusing, but it's a lot of brands for one company to represent and distribute. And that's what they do. They also distribute these brands for these individuals. So they're helping them with advertising, they're helping them get the word out, they're helping them with distribution, they're probably even helping them find the factories to create their blends in, because according to what I've read on the website, Emilio Cigars deals with over a dozen different factories around the world. So he's becoming quite the operation, and very wisely getting the attention of reviewers by just contacting them just like he did with me. Hey, like your show, got a bunch of cigars, want you to review them. Not pushing me in any direction, not saying, look, you can't say anything bad about him. If you don't like it, just don't put your review up. I mean, people have done, I've heard shit like that from people. You know, not people talking to me, but stories on the internet or through friends who do the same type of thing. And he's not like that at all. He just said, I just want an honest review. Whatever you think, that's fine. Just, it's a great way to get advertising out there. And, you know, he stands behind the cigar. He's saying, basically by doing that, he's saying, I know it's a good cigar. You're going to try it, and I think you're going to think so too. I'm not afraid of getting, you know, a bad review. So, this thing is smoking night and day. Night and day. See? I'm glad I did that. And I don't want that to impact on this cigar. What I do want is my viewers to learn when they encounter a problem like that, because, you know, the more cigars you smoke, the more it's going to happen. It is a problem that happens, especially with cigars that use heavier tobacco. Honestly, this happens to me mostly with Nicaraguan cigars, and even more so with Nicaraguan cigars that use heavy broadleaf wrappers. I don't know, it must be something in the process that when everything's rolled tight and put in the press or in the mold, the cigar ends up getting pushed to, who knows exactly how it happens. Cigar that it used to happen to me a lot was the El Triunfador, the original Lancero. Big thick wrapper, itty bitty filler. Everything gets pushed around, you get a big channel in there. But by being patient, let the cigar go out, brush everything away, look at what's going on and say, okay, it's a big channel. I'm just going to let that, what I did, let it burn, be gentle until finally it will eventually, it shouldn't. If it goes that would be a miracle. I don't know how it could possibly ever do that. But that's what I let it burn off. Everything should be fine. I do have a little bit of an uneven burn, but you know, can be expected with big thick wrappers like this, especially with this channel problem. But let's just keep going. It is drawing a lot better. You can see the smoke just pouring out of the hole, and it goes right into the ash. That's pretty incredible. So spices died out a lot now. I'm starting to get into the second third here. A lot of oils coming out of this papery wrapper. It's really coming to life. The flavor now is what I call bassy. Very bassy. The only treble I'm really getting anymore, as far as like tip of the tongue, high notes, is some after effects of all that spice. A little bit of tingle here and there, but for the most part, most of the spice is subsided. I'm just getting right now a very, very bassy flavor, very meaty, very salty, woody, a little coffee-esque in the back, but not too much. I got a few notes in the first, after the spice of a deep dark espresso coffee-esque flavor, but I'm not getting that anymore. I'm just basically getting a very bassy tobacco flavor. Not a lot of magic going on as far as, you know, complexity and, you know, notes of this and that and the other thing. It's actually nice. It's actually a little nice because it's so bassy that it's allowing me to now recapture the aroma of the chocolatey wrapper. And so I just said, a lot of oils coming out. The wrapper's really coming to life. It smells very chocolatey, you know. So when you get, wow, really smells chocolatey. When you get that together, it's kind of nice. We're a little uneven here, you know. It might require a touch-up or two, but whatever. For the most part, it's a great tasting cigar so far. Construction-wise, it's a bit off, but